Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Coming up next on Another View, the December Roundtable. Should municipalities make a special effort to do business with African-American companies? In 2011, a Kentucky church says no to membership from interracial couples. Really? And the addition of tolls at the Midtown and the downtown tunnels. Transportation progress or isolation of the city of Portsmouth. Roger Chesley, Carol Pretlow, Bill Thomas, and Wil LaVeist tackle these and other subjects on the December edition of the Another View Roundtable, right after this news from NPR.
Discussing the issues and celebrating the successes of the African American community. This is Another View.
And good afternoon, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Welcome to Another View. That applause today is for Bill Thomas, one of our roundtable pundits who decided to join us. We're so happy you're here, Bill.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. I'm down with the governor talking about transportation and transportation projects. And
oh, my. Well, we will get to that.
That's why you were late, transportation issues.
We will get to that in just a moment. But first, let me let our audience know that we have some very special guests besides you all with us today. And that is Dr. Charles Ford, who is professor and chair of history at Norfolk State University, and Dr. Wanda Brockington, who is chair and associate professor of the Department of Mass Communications and Journalism, also at NSU. And they are joining us because we were a silent auction item, the Another View show, for the Norfolk Education Foundation. And so Dr. Ford bid on us, and he is here to enjoy the show. And then we're going to go have some lunch with Lisa Godley afterwards. So we appreciate them being here.
That all of us go get? Because right now I feel like I'm an animal in the zoo being observed right now. I said, Lisa, I ought to be able to get a hot dog.
Okay, well, since my round table is going crazy, let me introduce them.
Got me walking around this cage like a hyena being observed.
And that person who is speaking is Wil LaVeist. He is our talk show host and author and journalist. You can hear Wil at WHRV-FM on Wednesdays. How you doing, Wil?
I'm doing well.
Welcome
Thank you,
to the show.
My sister.
And our favorite conservative curmudgeon. That's my term. That's my term of endearment, Bill. Bill Thomas, who is with Hampton University. Welcome.
Welcome. Good mornings. Good afternoon now. God bless everybody. I'm a Christian and love it.
Absolutely. Carol Pretlow, who is a political science professor at Norfolk State University. Hi, Carol.
Hi, one of the sane people here. Excluding the gentleman, of course.
And Roger Chesley, who is a columnist for the Virginian-Pilot, and you can read Roger on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And welcome, Roger.
Hello. How are you, Bud?
I'm doing great. Now, before we get started on the transportation issue, because you know that's a hot topic we need to talk about, we will just say that we send out our prayers and thoughts to the people out in Blacksburg at Virginia Tech.
Yes.
Happy that the system, sorry that they had to use their alert system, but happy that the alert system worked and that no other people were injured. And our prayers go out to the family of those who were killed yesterday. Yes. So, big deal, Midtown Tunnel.
Yes, indeed.
Before we get into the discussion, we have some sound. We want to hear from the rally that was held in Portsmouth on Wednesday. Now, this was spearheaded by the Martin Luther King Jr. Steering Committee, and the president of that committee is Reverend Dr. Melvin Mariner. And then right after that, we're going to hear a bite from Portsmouth Mayor Kenneth Wright. Let's listen.
It is my opinion that it is never too late to express one's constitutional right of freedom of speech, even with a signed agreement in hand. Therefore, this $3.68 a day initial proposed toll, which initially around $73.60 a month, is unfair, unequitable, and insensitive to the economic challenges of our city and While we are not bothered by ERC or anyone else making a return on their investment, We are concerned that they would do so by standing on the broken backs of our working class, commuting college students, TCC, NSU, ODU, and especially our business community here in the city of Portsmouth, trying to generate new business and new strength for our city.
This is a plea to all citizens in this region because roughly about 30% of our people live where they work, okay? Most of us are transit and mobile throughout this region, so this is going to affect more than just Portsmouth and Norfolk. This is going to affect the whole region. So this is something that we all need to embrace and all need to come together and find out how to best resolve this matter. What we're doing now and tolling these people and hurting a certain segment of people or a certain locality is not the right way to do it.
Now, we're talking about the fact that there are plans for an expansion of the Midtown Tunnel and also the addition of tolls at the Midtown and the Downtown Tunnel. Reaction, Roger?
Yeah, I was there with Lisa on Wednesday for this, and all I could keep thinking about was, man, this is way too little, way too late. I said that in the column that ran yesterday. And Dave Forster, who has been reporting about this, he's our Portsmouth reporter at the Pilot, is going to have a column on Sunday in the tab section, and it talks about back in November 2008, 3 years ago, the Pilot said tolls could be $2 to $3 when it comes, and so it's not a mystery that it's been out there. The forces that worked on the proposal got it down to closer to about $1.60 for non-peak hours. Mm-hmm. But it was just, I was almost speechless while this rally was going on. It was way too late to be complaining about what the figures were. And the Portsmouth city manager, he was one of the people who was on this review panel that was formed by the State Secretary of Transportation that evaluated and endorsed the proposal. So this was it was all this complaint way too late, and even after the governor had signed on to the deal. There was, is this going to be a financial hardship for the people of Portsmouth? Definitely. Where was this concern back in 2008? Where was this concern before the proposal came together?
Because there was some discussion about the fact that, and I believe I heard an interview where the reporter asked Mayor Wright, why now? And there was some discussion about how he was not privy to a lot of the details, that it was held close to the chest. Bill, you just shaking your head.
Roger and I, we're coming more and more closer and closer.
Oh Lord!
Together, you are.
I am scared, Bill.
You are 100. You are 100%.
Don't worry, Barbara. Your show won't go down the tubes. I'm still here. I'm still because I'm not going on that island.
You're 100% correct. And I wrote a paper maybe 20 years ago, and I'm going to send it to you. It's called Economic Apartheid, and this is what this is. Mm-hmm. And our leaders are just blind to it. Poor people can't afford to pay this. Period. So they're going to be, the people on the lower end are going to continue to suffer, and they're going to be suffering at the means of the government. Now, the people on the higher end and on the rich people, so to speak, and I say get rich if you can, they're going to afford it. It's not going to affect me one bit. A bottle of Cavassier a month. That's what it gets down to.
Excuse me.
So what I'm saying is the fact that, but on the other side, in the spirit of the season and all those things, the poor people who don't have job, who don't have education, who have no dream, who have no leadership, they should fire the entire Portsmouth City Council. They should fire the city manager of Portsmouth for negligence.
So they blame the city of Portsmouth, where this deal was made with the state and with this private company.
What the man said, you always have a right to your First Amendment to speak up and say no, and then try to get a better deal. As Roger just said, this has been in effect for 2 years talking about this. And that's why I got out of Norfolk maybe years ago, because I knew that if I'm going to be doing this transporting, because I commute as well, I didn't want to pay that. Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying is that I could do that. But the people at the bottom of the well, the people that don't have, the people that are elected officials, African-American, should be working for, should have said no. There should have been something. I don't believe in welfare, but I do believe in care fare, where you care enough about the people who don't have what I have, in the same sense of what Martin Luther King was saying, to do something about it.
And for the and to the mayors, let's give him
Roger.
Talk about the whole situation. I mean, he's only been mayor for about 16, 18 months. He came in after Mayor Hawley, was recalled. So, this was underway even before he got there. But many members on the city council had were privy to this, and they knew, the people, elected officials in the region knew that if they didn't take this deal, then the state was going to basically say, well, you figure it out without state money going into the pot for this.
One last cynical comment, though, Roger. One last cynical comment. I think they know what it's going to do. It's going to make the poor people move out of Norfolk and Portsmouth.
But where are they going to go, Bill?
They don't care. I remember when I first moved in Park Place 20 years ago, they had a big old meeting with the mayor and the head of the housing authority, and et cetera, et cetera. And this is on the record. I said, if we knock the houses down, where are the poor people who can't do anything going to go?
Thank you.
They said Newport News and Hampton. Dole Hall and David Rice was the chair of the Norfolk Regional Housing Authority, is on the record. So, in a way, it's so cynical that I don't think they give a darn about the people. They don't want them because of the burden. And so they had to have their eyes closed, or, in my opinion, they should be fired.
Well,
I'm just wondering what the alternative is, and wondering if this community will be able to mobilize itself in a Occupy Wall Street type of fashion. But just in the kind of community that we have, it doesn't seem like that would ever be the case. Because, as we've all said, as I've read the stories and looked at, the first thing I thought was, okay, who was involved in this and how long did they know? And it's clear city manager was involved, as Roger pointed out, as already has been pointed out. So where have the people been? And how do you come in so late in the process and make all of this to do? It's almost as if it's a show, that it's really about form and fashion, and it's not really about getting anything changed. And so, I'm just concerned about this community, that we see this happening often, that people raise Cain after the fact and then put on this show, and it dies down, and then nothing happens. Yeah.
And see, my concern was, if you said 2008, where were the civic and community leaders to hold these elected officials accountable and say, look, this is what's happening. Now, the average Joe Blow might not know. But that's why you have civic and community leaders to say, this is what's happening, and we need to mobilize now.
But Carol, let me throw this out to you, because there was a civic group in Portsmouth that they made a presentation to this week, and they said there were maybe a dozen, 24 people there. So talk more about how we need to get involved at that level.
Well, I think it starts with being aware not only of the issues, but who's running and when, and not after the fact, or 6 years later, 4 years later. But when people begin to run for office, saying, okay, what is their perspective? And not just are they media savvy and how many ads they have, but what specifically are they proposing to do? And how much is this going to cost us? Because the bottom line is always going to be economics. So I think we need to encourage people to get involved very early in the process. And if they go to city council meetings, if they're there from the beginning, they know when things are going to happen, and they begin mobilizing then.
But I think that's the problem with this community. We don't really have a protest culture. We hear protests and we think that there's something wrong with that. I mean, you disseminating information on this show all the time. I disseminate information on my show all the time. And again, as a former columnist covering a lot of these issues, in these civic meetings, you'd have 3 people showing up. We don't have a civic-minded. I have a right to expect certain things from our government, and I have to demand it, and I will go to the streets peaceably to do it.
So the question is, how do we get people to be more civic-minded? We in academia can talk about it till, the cows come home, but how do we impress upon the average Joe Blow that this is a necessity?
You have to have the leadership. You have to have the leadership. Ever since I've been here in Hampton Roads, I've seen a docile African-American leadership, non-controversial. I see it as a mentality. It's as I see it. I remember one time they told me, Mayor Mason Andrews, God bless his soul, told me that, Bill, you said you're from Kansas City and you said you participated in riots there when things got bad. I sure did. And in Cleveland, yeah, I sure was. I was right out there. And at the University of Kansas, when they told all black folks we had to leave, we just said, oh, no, you got to put us off. He said, we know one thing about Norfolk. We've never had the black folks get up and do anything. That's what he said. And it's the leadership. It's the go along to come along. It's I'm the high, mighty elected official, and I call them Negro specialists. You have assistant to the president of ODU. You have an assistant to the president of these schools. They're nothing more, in my judgment, in my opinion, are just Negro specialists. They just go along to get paid, and the community, they don't speak up. And they should speak up. They should have position. But then they have a obligation, it's almost a moral obligation, to rally the community. Bring the community, bring the academia people in there and talk about it. Bring the Rogers and the Wills in there so that they can educate people. Show them that you're trying to reach out to the community to do things that are going to be well. It's not there.
Well, let me play devil's advocate for just a second, though, because it's not just Portsmouth that's going to be affected by these tolls.
Yeah.
You know, I don't live in Portsmouth, but I certainly use those tunnels. And other people use those tunnels. So shouldn't people all over Hampton Roads be rallying against this? Or because it's not my backyard, I don't care? Well,
I think... Again, I would like to know, okay, what are the options? I think what needs to happen, and a lot of this issue is about regionalism and about starting to think with a regional mindset, which we all know who have been here covering these issues. That's one of the hardest nuts to crack here in this community, and that's at the root of a lot of these problems, that everybody's sort of in their own silos and wants to do their own little things. But there really needs to be a comprehensive regional plan to these types of issues. And until that's addressed, and again, the issue to that is leadership and people being on the ground, understanding what is at stake.
So do you think that if it wasn't Portsmouth, because Portsmouth is the smallest city, it is the most concentrated in terms of African-American citizenship and so forth, that they just don't have the juice, if you will, Roger?
Yeah, maybe the size of the city more than necessarily what the racial makeup of the city is.
Okay.
And look, we as, I think, Americans, we tend to be selfish. We tend not to care as much unless it affects us personally. And so while it was still kind of on the horizon, I think a lot of residents really hadn't realized, hey, this is really going to affect you. It's going to happen. And if you don't get involved in it early, you could be hurt from this.
Okay. Mark joins us from Portsmouth. Hi, Mark. You're on the air.
Thank you. One of the points that Mayor Wright made and that others have made that were not part of the initial discussion, and to me are more problematic than the initial toll rate, is that the concessionaire is guaranteed an increase once substantial construction is complete on an annual basis of the greater of 3.5% or the increase in the consumer price index. That was never on the table up front. And for them to have a guaranteed annual rate of return of no less than 3.5%, I think Dominion Virginia Power and Virginia Natural Gas would like to get in on that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And what he's saying
Go
is
ahead,
the fact
Bill.
that as an economist, at that kind of increase, gang, that means in 10 years the price is going to double.
Yeah, as a
It's
matter of
just a
fact,
number.
it says round trip for a car could be more than $22, and for a truck could be more than $80.
And minimum is going to be
Over
double.
time.
Over time, yeah.
But
over
at
time.
3% is guaranteed to double in 10 years. So you just gave the folks and then the whole, and anyhow, it's really tragic. It really is. But I do think it shows lack of leadership.
The question is, it would be $22 round trip per day at the end of the concessions if they raised it as they have the opportunity to do that. So
And
that
they will.
That's an incredible economic hardship.
Some of the residents and some of the store owners that I talked to in Portsmouth, they're really scared about this. They're wondering, especially the small shop owners. They're wondering, is this going to put us out of business?
Yes.
If you live in Virginia Beach, if you live in Chesapeake, if you live in Norfolk, and you have the opportunity, okay, where do I want to go to a restaurant today? Well, I'm going to have to add that in if I go over to Portsmouth. You know, that's going to be part of my tab.
Absolutely.
Do I like the restaurant that much? Do I like that antique shop that much? Or am I just going to stay on my side? And very clearly could balkanize this region even worse.
And that's why I say it's a comprehensive solution is what is needed. And, me being a native of New York, that kind of money, this area can't absorb that kind of money. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of money in New York.
You're not kidding.
And New York is a huge metropolis with a lot of revenue streams and so forth. But at least to give New York its credit, if you know something about its history, it had a lot of its little boroughs with little silos, just like we have here in Hampton Roads. And the leadership got together. Some of it was strong arming, but eventually got together and they started acting in a cohesive kind of way. I mean, I'm from the most rebellious borough. Brooklyn was the last holdout, and they eventually got on board. And that's what needs to happen here in Hampton Roads. This kind of economy here can't absorb that.
Well, what will it take for the leadership? Because I'm thinking, okay, the mayor of Norfolk, the mayor of Portsmouth, the mayor of Chesapeake, all of these areas are going to be affected by this. So even if you just look at the South Side, not even talking about if you decide to come over from the peninsula.
Norfolk is benefiting from this because the people in Virginia Beach that probably would go to Portsmouth are going to stop in Norfolk. And then they can get on that train. And so the mayor of Norfolk
is train to nowhere.
No, I never said that. Actually, I think that's a good deal.
I said that.
Oh, but I think it's a good deal. But Norfolk will benefit.
You're talking
greatly.
about the tide.
Yeah, the tide. And so they're going to benefit. I mean, I'm not going to go. If I can go to a restaurant in Norfolk and not have to pay that toll, I'm going to go to Norfolk. I'm not going to go to Portsmouth.
Yeah, that's your point.
Well, one of the things, keep in mind now, the region's leaders agreed to this because they felt like this was one way to at least get some relief on traffic congestion and give us more opportunities for evacuation if and when it's needed. And again, it's being shortchanged. It's kind of the mentality that the General Assembly has towards Hampton Roads. We can help pay for roads all around the state, but when we need help for it, we're not getting the same benefit from residents all around the state, and it's unfair. And I think it shows a lack of leadership also in our legislative delegation in Richmond from Hampton Roads. Mm. That this is the best that we could get.
Okay, so last question: is it too late?
Yes.
There's nothing that can be done?
I think for all intents and purposes it is. I think this is kind of too late. Now, you want them to try to get a better deal, but I think this is probably going to be the best deal we get.
And they call it the Martin Luther King. Man,
that's
I gotta give you. I don't even have an issue with some of my counter friends in the majority community, but they're smart. They're smart.
And you think they got over this time?
Oh. They got over.
What do you mean I think they got over? Well, I had the Martin Luther King toll.
Okay, speaking there, we're going to stay in Portsmouth for just a moment because, Bill, this is a topic that is near and dear to your heart. So recently, the City Council voted 6-1 to seek ways to increase participation by black residents in the local economy through non-discriminatory means. In other words, they want to try to increase the opportunity for black businesses to do business with the city. And to let our audience know, our roundtable, they talk to each other via email the entire month before they go on the air. So this was a huge issue for Bill. So let's have it, Bill.
Oh, it's really simple. I can use my good friend Will as an example. In Brooklyn, that community got together, stuck together, made purchases together. Government can't guarantee outcomes. And I really don't even understand that a city that's led by African Americans, the mayor, the city manager, and the school board chairman, and all these people and all these big castle churches that they have up here, and they let white people build them, and then they complain that they can't get a guaranteed contract. I don't understand it. And first of all, government can't. This is not the role of government to guarantee outcomes. Get up there, do your work, do your job, buy from each other. The biggest issue that I think affects African Americans is when we passed integration, because then we thought our mentality went crazy. We stopped buying from each other. If we just bought from each other, I gave you that survey that we had from Nielsen that told you, but we don't even buy from each other. So this is not going to work, and it's illegal. You can't do it anyhow.
No, I think you can't necessarily guarantee outcomes, but you can guarantee participation. You can guarantee access. You can guarantee fairness of opportunity. And sometimes I do think that is a serious issue, both on local and state contracts in this country.
Well, this governor has been doing a disparity study, Will, because I know you brought that up, but a disparity study throughout the state in terms of how many minority companies and women-owned companies are actually contracted by the state compared to white male companies. And they find that the numbers are really low.
Exactly, and that's exactly what Portsmouth is looking to do. That state study was done some years ago under Governor Warner through Ed Ham at that time. And what they were looking at was
no relation.
We've got low numbers, and they were looking at, well, is there something systemic that's going on that's creating these low numbers? And that's simply what Portsmouth is doing. Is saying the numbers are low. Do we have an issue here that can be corrected? Hampton has done it, and so there's nothing wrong with looking at. We've got low numbers. Do we have a systemic problem? And if so, what can we do to remedy it? And our our current governor, your friend, believes in this.
Very good friend.
Believes in this as well because he supported the funding on the state level.
For a second.
Yeah.
That already got started.
And I think that he's very smart to do so. He recognizes the history of racism in this state and in this country, and he's saying if there's an issue, we want to continue to fund it and find there's an issue and rectify it.
Before you start, Bill, let me get Carol in, okay?
I was back to his comment that you can't guarantee outcomes, but you can create a climate that is compatible with growing an environment that is conducive to black businesses and helping them prosper and thereby helping the African American community. You're not per se saying, okay, this is what, I'm not creating a situation, but I'm recognizing that there have been some inequalities here, and let's create a climate by which we can eliminate some of these.
Call it what it is. Call it what it is. It's institutionalized racism. And you guys don't want to do it. The majority has been doing this for 360 years. Listen to what I'm saying. Actually, who did the survey? Did an African-American company do the survey?
What, the statewide survey or the one that...
In Hampton and in Portsmouth? Who did the survey? You don't think that?
Sure.
You don't think that ODU? Wait a minute. You don't think that Norfolk State could have got some of their mathematicians together with Hampton and could have got paid $500,000 to the state, $250,000 by the city of Hampton, and probably another $250,000 by the city of Portsmouth? They didn't even come and ask Norfolk State or Hampton or the state to use our universities, our intellectual properties to do it. So it's an inverse way of looking at things. That could have been the first thing.
How does it reverse racism to look at, do we have a systemic problem? How is that automatic reverse racism?
No. I said
that's reverse racism?
You're not hearing what I'm saying. I'm saying it's institutionalized racism.
You're saying we do have a systemic problem.
I said the numbers are low because 2 and 1% because there is institutionalized racism. I agree with you on that.
So they're studying it to see what they can do to rectify it, and you have a problem with that.
But because really, Bill, isn't that what the council in Portsmouth is saying, that we're going to take a look at this?
You don't need to take a look at it. You don't have to do anything. They do 1 or 2% business all the way around. It's institutionalized racism that we have to deal with. And we don't have leaders, again, strong enough to stand up to it and stop it.
So you're saying, why study what you already know is a problem?
You already know.
So why waste money studying?
Now
what's the one at a time?
You're saying now, so what are the solutions? Like, what did Hampton come up with, and what are the solutions? Because they did a study, too.
They didn't come up with nothing.
So what are the
numbers are still 1 or 2%.
So you're saying that they're just wasting money.
Okay, so here's the bigger issue. Why is it then, do you think, that black businesses have such a hard time, especially in the procurement process with municipalities? What is going on that, is somebody sitting there with a piece of paper and saying, oh, black business, nope?
Nope, they say, good old boys, that we've been doing it this way for years, we're going to continue to do it this way. And that's the way I see it.
And
go ahead, Roger.
This is kind of serious because I agree with Bill on that. There are institutions that make decisions, but people are still involved in those institutions.
Thank you.
And what are they used to doing? And who are the people? It's no mystery to people who look at who gets the contracts in cities around here, who normally gets those contracts, who normally is favored, which developers are normally favored for certain projects, whose name always seems to be attached to certain hotels, to certain housing subdivisions,
schools.
Yeah.
So what do you do about it? So what do you do about it?
So that's why I don't have a problem, and this is where I disagree with Bill. That's why I don't have a problem with Portsmouth going along in the fashion that it's doing now. I think there is some value into seeing, is there a way to make sure that the process is fairer, if not totally fair? And I don't have a problem with that. But yes, do I think there's some favoritism that's in the system? Yeah, and I think that it's been that way for a long time, and it's good when you start to chip away at that.
Carol?
Ooh, there are so many levels here. First of all, of course, I agree that there's the economic level in which you actually need the statistical data and the information to support your arguments and to understand what is happening, why it's happening, and what the impact will be. But then I think that if we look at the history of the area and the prior problems, not only in the economic community and in the housing community, but in the educational community, we see, I don't like to label it racism, but that's what it is. So the next problem, the next idea is, how do we eradicate it? We look at what the data is, we begin to analyze it and say, okay, now is the time that we look at a structured approach to how to eliminate the problem, and part of that structured approach is going through black businesses and looking at what is causing the problem with them and how we can eradicate that problem and coming up with a solution. And I knew you were going to disagree.
Oh, I totally disagree, because there's nothing you can do. So you're saying the fact that all of the disparities and all the issues. Let me give you an example here. I'll give you a perfect example. Stay in tune with what's going on. Liberty University just received $12 million from the Commonwealth of Virginia to build a medical school. Liberty University, a private university, gets almost $450 million in federal loans to put their students, the highest in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Liberty University has the highest percent of TAG students, student assistant grants, than any private institution in Virginia. How do they get it? Are they that much better than Norfolk State? Are they that much better than Hampton University?
Yeah.
Or do they have the influence of people that's representing them, that's knocking down that governor's door, telling him to make sure you find some way to get all of this money? And let me give you another example.
Well, some of that's also the wealth of the alumni, and if they have people throughout state government that has the access to the governor and is influence. So it's not always just other politicians working hard.
A school that doesn't even have a decent medical program, a science program.
Now, that's your opinion.
No,
exactly.
They don't have it.
Well,
no, it's my opinion and it's my judgment. Do you think,
but
just anecdotally, do you think they have a better science program than Norfolk State?
No, I do not.
But I would agree
order to make the argument at the legislative level, you're going to have to be able to come up with the facts and figures.
Because they're going to tell me, Bill, you got to prove you a slave. You got to do a survey, and you got to tell me you want to be free.
But to Bill's point, I mean, the Hampton University deserved more money than it got for the Proton Therapy Institute, and they had to beg for the little amount that they got. And when we knew this was going to be something that was going to help the Commonwealth and that was going to be of a value that all along the East Coast, and so there is some level of truth to that, to what's the influence, what's the fairness, and who's making the decision at the top also.
Yeah, but it goes beyond just, well, I feel this is wrong. You still, even on a very personal level, have to be able to argue the point and come up with the facts and figures.
I think in this particular instance, especially with Hupty, there's no question.
So
you
what's the
don't
solution?
Need to do any studies
so
on
what's
that.
like I asked earlier, what's the solution? You're saying get rid of all of your weak black leaders that are out there? Is that what we're saying?
I'm just saying.
What's the solution?
They're not, and they're fine people. I'm just saying. I don't have an issue with what Liberty University is getting. I applaud them. Mm-hmm. But why don't we have that kind of engaged leadership? You're going to tell me that either Hampton or Norfolk State or any of our schools or ODU have the same amount of political influence in the legislatures to get that done? Because it is a political process.
Yeah.
Political politics, as you understand, currency is green. It's money.
I agree with that.
So the power behind the leadership comes from where? The community, right?
No, somebody's got to stand up and take the hit. And somebody's got to stand up and say, this is wrong. It's institutional racism. And I don't care if you're my friend. I don't care if you're whatever. I got to call it what it is.
And you don't think that happens?
It doesn't happen. It's going to happen in this case because I'm on your radio program. It does happen because I'm saying it right now on your radio program that nobody's ever heard me say before. Or I've said it before. People don't listen. Yes, it's institutionalized racism. Or I'm totally incompetent. Because the system was fair. It's just like I went to the Norfolk State ODU game.
Okay.
95% of the players on the fields were black. Mm-hmm. And in the stand, 98% were white. and the people who own the boxes, the people who made the money, they're all white. And we're out there like gladiators.
Nobody has any response to that?
Deep.
Anybody have a response?
Yeah, I'm going to leave that one alone.
Me too.
I don't see race in everything.
Dr. Whitaker is joining us from Portsmouth. Hi, Dr. Whitaker. You're on the air.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon.
Hello?
Good afternoon. I was calling in response to the comments in regards to the minority contractor contracting. I am presently on the Portsmouth School Board, and we have done a disparity study. And I just wanted to address my colleague at Hampton University, Mr. Bill Thomas, in regards to the comment about why we had to study it.
Can you turn your radio down? I think that'll make it a little bit easier for you.
Yes.
Okay.
Under the Croson case from Richmond, U.S. Supreme Court case, it is required, if you're going to institute programs, that you have to show a statistical disparity. You can't just come up and make an arbitrary statement of discrimination, but because of the Supreme Court case, before you can implement programs, you have to show a statistical disparity. So I just wanted to point that out so that we wouldn't say that we can just correct all these issues, but there's a process that the court requires that you go through, because if you're sued, the program that you put in place would be constitutionally challenged and probably found to be unconstitutional. And so we are one of the few school districts as well as localities that's addressing minority contracting. I know that I have been aggressively pursuing it since I was elected to the school board in 2002. And so I just wanted to point that out to the audience, that what we're doing is going through the legal process that is required so that we can implement programs so that we won't see the 1.5 utilization rates in both the state and the local levels.
So, Dr. Whitaker, let me ask you this then? How, as Will has been saying, what's the solution? Once you get your numbers and you see where the disparity is, how will you correct it?
Well, what you see is that there are a number of ways of correcting it. You can have race-conscious and race-neutral remedies. Through the study, there have been proposals that we can implement to correct it. And we are in the process now. We just had an RFP that was sent out, and we've gotten responses that we're in the process of hiring companies to implement our disparity study. And so it is something that can be corrected at that level, and also understand that Virginia is under the Virginia Procurement Act. There are different levels of contracting in which you can make individual decisions right at the local level without it going through, let's say, a city council or school board. And so individuals who are in positions can make direct unilateral changes in how we contract, particularly contracts that are under $50,000. Those contracts do not have to go out and be voted on by the local bodies. And so when we get in positions to make a difference, we have to do that.
Okay, and Dr. Whitaker,
so we can control outcomes. So
yes.
Outcomes can be controlled.
Thank you for calling in and talking with us. I appreciate that. So he says it gets back down, Will, to individuals in terms of making a difference.
And his last comment, and I've said this several times on this show, his last comment was very, very significant. When we get in positions to implement or to have influence, we need to act. And that, I've said several times when we were on TV, that is one of the biggest impediments to black advancement right now. It's not that white folks are somewhere in a corner conspiring. It's black people in positions of influence who are not exercising that influence.
So it's not a race problem. So it's not a black-white issue.
So what I'm saying is, now in the area of solutions, you look at, for example, the NFL. They had something put in called the Rooney Rule, which basically made it so that anytime an NFL head coach position was available, you had to hire a minority candidate. You had to at least interview. Right. You had to at least bring them in. Because what happens is, as Roger said earlier, when it comes down to individuals and relationships, people tend to hire people that they're comfortable with, that they live with, that they grew up with. And they're not of the mindset of thinking about what is best for the business. They're thinking about what is best for me individually and my team. So when you look at the NFL now, to see a black head coach, and there's arguments as to whether the Rooney Rule's been successful, but that's not something that you even question as an issue, because those opportunities were created. The other thing that has to happen is that you have to start filling the pipeline. You have to start cultivating entrepreneurship and business opportunities, so you start filling the pipeline. A problem I'll come back to the NFL that it may run into is that you look at the college ranks. The black coaches at the college ranks are not that plentiful. So those are the two things that have to happen. I use that as an example, but in Portsmouth, in any city, you need to cultivate entrepreneurship among younger minorities and do it in a way that's equal, that people have an opportunity to build businesses. And if you're in a position of influence, you need to exercise that influence.
I think that's important, but I don't think that we can underestimate the impact that of one thing that you said there, that people who get into positions of hiring or determining who's going to be on their boards or who's going to be within the company, if they only do the same thing every time, it's going to continue to have those same outcomes. Look at the Fortune 500 companies in this country. Who are the CEOs? Who are the board of directors? Almost all the time, overwhelmingly white, overwhelmingly male. And you can't break into that sometimes unless you mandate that there are changes. And sometimes that comes from government directive or popular anger and uprising.
In the case of the NFL, though, let's talk about leadership. And if it wouldn't have been for Gene Upshaw, who got all the players together and who mandated that this rule come into place, he showed effective leadership. And so the owners had no choice.
It was R. Rooney. His name for the owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Who Mike Tomlin, our homeboy here from Hampton Roads, has been a coach.
But he took that kind of leadership. But they knew he couldn't go around it. And Gene Upshaw was black, and he was in charge of the union, and he got the players together, and they stood rock steady. So Art Rooney, who's a fine man, as you said, got his stuff through.
So it took two people, whether they were black or white or whatever, that had good character.
Oh, I don't believe in race. I agree. I said take leadership and character.
And we don't have enough of that.
We don't have any.
If you're just joining us, you're listening to the Another View Roundtable with Roger Chesley, Carol Pretlow, Bill Thomas, and Wil LaVeist. And then move on to another topic because we're, you guys really get going. Couple in Kentucky, interracial couple. The woman is white. The gentleman is African. Not African American, but African, and the woman belongs to a church there, and the church has ruled that once they get married, they cannot belong to the church in 2011. Your thoughts, Bill?
Yeah, Bill.
Well, it's just the hypocrisy of things that are going on, and I think the church should be able to do what they want to do. So I don't really have any issues with it.
Wait.
It's the Gulnair Free Will Baptist Church.
Free Will Baptist Church?
Yes. In
America,
Kentucky,
you have a free will, and as long as somebody's going to I think you ought to look at outrageous things like this as a test, as a tenor. And I think it should have been publicized. People know who they are. They know what they do. I don't think you should try to it's insane. So let insanity reign. So, if they want to do that, then So
you're saying it's okay for them to
if they want to have a church to be bigots,
to not allow these people
if a bunch of folks who I consider to be bigots out front, because I think 90% of the people that are bigots, they just don't tell you, then I know who to avoid. I look at it right in the mirror and say, hey, look, I'll just avoid those people.
What about the Christianity aspect of this?
Well,
what is
slavery
right?
was considered to be the Christian. All the good Christians in the South, Robert E. Lee, Davis, all of these people, Jefferson Davis, were all Christians. So
okay,
no. That don't mean
I
anything.
can't say, well, okay, my Christian brothers and sisters, I expect a higher level of understanding about human differences and about free will and about love.
Well, Herman Cain was an ordained minister.
Well, I would
okay,
I
you
would
made
hope,
your point.
Did you get my point?
I do.
I would hope
That's
in this day and
scary.
age that churches of all places would be more open-minded, be more inclusive. It was a small church. They were outed about it. Personally, if you don't want me in your church, I don't want to be part of your church.
Yeah.
But you know, I think that churches should not be discriminating in this way also, and churches of all places, but we all know that in this country, in the history of churches, it's not always been the most inclusive, and you wouldn't think that would be the case in 2011.
I do have to read this one part, though, because I just found it interesting. It says that the Glenara Free Will Baptist Church does not condone interracial marriage. Parties of such marriages will not be received as members, nor will they be used in worship services and other church functions, with the exception being funerals.
Because you pay for that. You go to church, you got to pay for a funeral. That's about business.
Well, weddings you have to pay for too.
I understand the new pastor. I understand this was something from the previous pastor. The new one has come in and has a different program and outlook. But for me as a Christian, I'm not fazed by what this church did. It is so far off of what's in the Gospels that, you know, it's really not even worth.
But one thing that's sad about this, the young lady in this couple, she had been a member for years. She had grown up, and this is the way that they treat her.
I know. Yeah. Laura joins us from Virginia Beach. Hi, Laura.
Hi. I'm sorry. When I heard about that story, I almost got physically ill. I am a white Jewish woman married to a white Jewish man. This is not directly personal, but this just feels like a church that nobody needs to belong to. I know it's been, 2,000-odd years since the time of Christ, and since Paul preached that there's no Jew nor Greek, slave nor free man, all are one in the church. This is not my religion, but I know it, and I cannot believe that people would be a party to an organization designed to uplift people that just shoots them down like this. I would leave them before they left me, and I would take everybody with me. I can't believe it.
I think you've got agreement here at the panel, Laura. Thanks so much for calling. We appreciate it.
But Sunday morning is called the most segregated hour.
Yes.
So take it for what it's worth. I mean, just deal with it. If they want to do it, let them do it.
All right, 5 minutes left in the conversation. We got to talk about your buddy, Mr. Cain.
Oh,
Bill.
No. Now, I'm on the record with that. And one of my colleagues at the table pointed out some weeks ago that he was talking about some legislation and making 1 or 2 pages. Mm-hmm. I let that go. Mm-hmm. And then the next time he came out with something, I said he's not serious.
Yeah. And you think that's what happened?
He's not serious. And he's an ordained minister, too.
Is he?
Yes, he is.
That I had not heard.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you know, as I've said before, you know, when we were on television, you know, I said that this undertaking for him was really a no-lose situation in the sense that it was going to raise his profile. And here we are. We're talking about Herman Cain.
That's true. It did raise his profile.
Who do you think he's going to endorse now?
Doesn't matter.
I don't care. Yeah. But I did want to say this, especially to the other men on the panel. If you give thousands of dollars to a woman that's not your wife, and you're not having a relationship with her,
doesn't know about it,
then maybe you should wonder about the aptitude of your wife on that one. So I'm sorry. Most men don't go giving that much money to somebody who's just a friend down on his or her luck. So.
Okay.
Well,
I don't know something like that. I can't address that issue. I can't address that issue because I would have known if I was out of town and came back and a news story said I had been giving some other woman that kind of money, I would have said, well, that's the end of my campaign. And please meet me at my house. There's going to be some trouble.
I did find it kind of interesting, though, when Cain said that he set an appointment with his wife 5 days later to discuss it.
Let her cool down.
You're taking shots at the man's wife. You're taking backhanded shots at the man's wife.
You don't know what you did to him. Oh, you don't know what you did to him?
Well, at least she didn't come out of the house with a golf club.
Okay, last thing, since it is the holidays, this is December, I want to ask each of you, what would you like to see in your stocking this Christmas? And each of you have about 30 seconds. Roger.
I would like to see jobs for everybody who wants one here in Hampton Roads and try to get people back to work.
Carol.
I'd like to see jobs, but I'd like to see increased funding for Norfolk State. Okay, I'm selfish. What can I say?
Plug.
I can't help it. I'm selfish.
Okay, Bill?
I like to see all of us get together and try to live with the terms that we had before with Martin Luther King and individual responsibilities. Norfolk State gets money if they deserve it. But I want to say to the audience, God bless America and God bless this Christmas.
Okay.
To the
Carol, do you
politically
want to respond
insensitive.
to him real quickly?
Well, of course, Norfolk State deserves it. We have a history from 1935
Then don't
on
beg.
proving that we deserve it. But maybe we need something to give us incentive to continue and to help the growing number of people who are affected by our services.
One of your delegates is on the Appropriations Committee. Tell Mr. Algie how to do his job.
And on that note, Will, what would you like to see in your Christmas stocking this year?
I just want to see my wife wrapped up in that stocking.
My goodness.
How's that for families?
Hey, man, we can end on that.
As always, you guys are a joy. It is wonderful to talk with you all. I wish each and every one of you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
At you,
and we will be back in January. I appreciate that. So January we'll kick in the new year with another lively discussion, and we'll be right back. And as usual, there's lots going on in Hampton Roads this weekend. This coming Monday, December 12th, join the Kitchen Vixens and certified sommelier Gina McVeigh for a sparkling wine tasting. The event will be held at Terebinth, a sweet retreat on Eden Way in Chesapeake. Learn all about wine pairings that will work with your holiday menu. For more information, visit thekitchenvixens.com. Then on Thursday, December 13th, I hope you will join me for the Changing Lives Breakfast, sponsored by the Urban League of Hampton Roads. It's at 8:30 a.m. in the Chesapeake Conference Center. This is the place to be if you want your spirits lifted and life really put in perspective. I'm serving as MC for the event and would love to see you there. For more information, call Tanya Weaver at 757-627-0864. And finally, a reminder that tonight is the debut of the Addicts Nutcracker. This high-energy fun show takes the traditional Nutcracker storyline and gives it a soulful twist. The production features students from the year-round arts education programming provided by the Crispus Addicts Cultural Center. Tickets are available through Ticketmaster, and the show is at 7:30 tonight and Saturday night. Thank you so much, as always, for spending your Friday with us. We so appreciate you. Next week, the plight of African-American men in Hampton Roads and what one school system is doing to ensure the academic success of Black boys. On behalf of producer Lisa Godley and audio engineer Perry Smith and Elena Outing, who answered our phones, I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Please join us again next Friday for another view.